Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Premier Sim Gaming League's YouTube channel. Now it is the turn of the PS4 F7 League to take centre stage here for round 5 at the Circuit de Monaco for the Monaco Grand Prix. My name is Jake and I hope you're all having a great day, and hopefully we're in for a very exciting race tonight around these historic narrow streets. Of course, one of the legendary tracks on the calendar divides opinion among the drivers here. But nevertheless, we've got a really decent turnout and it should be a very exciting race ahead. And we'll go straight on board of the first car out, which I believe will be that Racing Point that's just made its way onto the circuit. Let's see if it is Jonas? No, it'll be Vapor Zero, who's first one out on the track. Before we get stuck into tonight's action, let's have a quick look back at last week's race, which was an absolute cracker around the circuit Paul Ricard. If you haven't seen it already, I urge you to go back and watch it. It was an absolute brilliant race. In the end, TNR Jonas took a hard-fought win, beating his championship rival Felix, who took second, with Morgan, who was looking in a fantastic position to win until a poorly timed safety car from his perspective meant he had to stage a late comeback just to grab the final spot on the podium. Ugi Azim too had his best drive of the season to grab 4th. In terms of how the championship is shaping up then after 4 rounds, with Sol looking very interesting at the top. We've got Jonas in lead on 51 points, just 3 points ahead of Felix, with Morgan 12 points off the leader. We've then got Tim Matz in 4th, just ahead of Free Gloves. It's worth noting that only the top 4 in the championship so far have stood on the podium. That's only 4 drivers that have stood on the podium in our first 4 races, which I find quite incredible, really. And if there is a track where that stat is likely to change, you have to say it's probably a track like this. This really could produce some upsets, potentially some big moments in the title race could be about to happen this evening. Before we get into qualifying properly, let's give you a little background about the venue for tonight's race. The Circuit de Monaco held its first race way back in 1929 and has become the real home of the glitz and glamour of Formula One, with party boats crowding the harbour and posh apartments that overlook the circuit itself. It is 2.07 miles long, the shortest track on the calendar by some margin, and features 19 corners with 7 to the left and 12 to the right, and a lap record set by Max Verstappen in 2018 on a 1:14.2. 39 laps stand in front of our drivers tonight, and the question is who will avoid the walls to take one piece of a coveted Triple Crown of Motorsport. Already Vapor Zero is going to set a pretty decent opening benchmark of 1:10.5. It's a pretty smooth lap, no real issues for him. Other drivers look like they're having a few issues. Ugi Azim now goes into provisional pole at a 1:10.3. And now PB Racing, that's the first proper lap. I was going to say 1:10 didn't seem overly fast, but Bryn, PB Racing, whatever you want to call him, has done a 1:08.6 to set the first proper lap time of this qualifying session. Of course, you can put over a few laps worth of fuel here and go for a few laps. The tyre around here is not too bad compared to a lot of other circuits. This isn't going to be much of a representative lap from Jonas, who goes 4th. Let's go on board with our reserve, who's in the McLaren this evening. That's Dimsky, just having a bit of a problem down at the Nouvelle Chicane. And a few bits of news to tell you about before we get firmly stuck into the action on track. Furry Lando, who's now known as Furry Solanke, he does have a race ban for tonight, so that's the reason why he's not on the grid, and that was for purposefully crashing for the second time this season. You may well have seen it on the stream last time out. TRT James, the other McLaren driver, has left the league too, with Nick Mania replacing him. So Nick Mania jumps from reserve to full-time driver. And it's a big change for McLaren, and they need it because at the moment they haven't scored any points this season and have looked not particularly competitive up to now. So maybe this change of drivers will provide a change of fortunes for the team. And already Nick Mania's popped it onto the front row, very, very close indeed to the pole position time of Bryn, just half a tenth between them. Those are probably your two only representative times up to now. Expect the times to come tumbling down as the drivers get more and more used to this circuit. Got Game Freak who's popped it into 4th. TB Sen now coming up to the Nouvelle Chicane, turns 10 and 11. That's a bit late on the brakes and he will have lost time there. Now the short straight to back, flick it in, trying to avoid the wall on the right hand side, and then through his very fast chicane, which then leads into the swimming pool chicane. Easy to cut that corner and pick up a warning, but he avoids it nicely. Now through Raskas and straight into the pits before he got to the Anthony Noves corner, which is turn 19, the final corner of this circuit. If you're wondering as well who this is, Paco Suarez, that is Frunky. He's just had a PSN name change. So that is still Frunky in the Williams. And he's got a 5-place grid penalty for a collision with Felix. What? I was literally just on board of him. He's nowhere near his teammate. He's in the pits. His teammate's already in the pit. I've never seen anything quite like that. That's utterly bizarre. And the problem with a grid penalty is there's not really much the stewards can do to stop that. There's not like obviously the penalty is going to affect him at the start of the race. So that's completely and utterly bizarre, I have to say. That's a real shame for him. The last thing you need at Monaco is a grid penalty. We all know how difficult it is to overtake around these narrow streets, so that's really going to affect his race. And of course, we know Felix is the only driver to have scored points for Williams thus far, so you know that's not going to help that stat potentially. Game Freak asking if he needs to spoil the weather for the race. The fact that you're mentioning the weather suggests to me that you're going to tell me there's going to be some rain of some sort. So, I mean, if you want to, I mean, I'm not against that. Oh, and Sam's crashed in the pit lane. Sam's qualifying comes to a quite dramatic end there. It looks like he picked up oversteer, just putting it into the pits, and he's binned it against the wall, and that's the end of his qualifying. So already Sam and Paco Suarez struggling in qualifying and have got big problems, and Tim Matz has been disqualified for blocking the pit lane. What on earth is going on here? This is a bizarre start to qualifying. As the Ugi Azim goes around the final corner, he's about to improve and does so to go up to 3rd. Oh, this is unreal. Tim Matz's qualifying is over. 4th in the championship at the moment, but he's been disqualified for blocking the pit lane. We've got Sam, who binned it in the pit lane, and then we've got Paco, who's got a bizarre grid penalty for a collision with his teammate who was in the pits. So, I've not really got lost for words there. Some bizarre happenings early on in this qualifying session. And this is the one qualifying session where you really don't want to be affected by things like that. Here we are on board with a championship leader, TNR Jonas, who's trying to get up to speed in this session, still down in 8th place, and there's quite a big margins at the moment between the drivers, so just shows how much they're struggling. Jonas is going to improve, but it's only good enough for 7th, and he's still quite a long way off pole position. As Marcus Fowl, who is VRT Valken formerly, another name change there. Marcus Fowl goes into 3rd place. Once again, another driver into the 108.6 margin. And now let's go on board with Morgan. He's been super quick. Certainly last time out at Paul Ricard, he was super quick. Quickest driver there, and unfortunately it was only a poorly timed safety car that cost him the victory. But he still managed to put on a great comeback to get on the podium. What's his first lap going to be like here in qualifying today? It's good enough for 6th. Still 1.3 seconds off pole position. And look at that, you can really see the gaps at the moment that are happening throughout the field. Let's go on board with TB Sen just as he crosses the line to go 6th, just above his teammate. Who have we got out there on the lap at the moment? Free Gloves is backed off, he did his lap. I'm going to go on board with Paco, who's about to go up to 10th place. But of course, that will become 15th once the penalty comes into effect. Game Freaker moves up to 5th. I have to say, this is quite, I mean, obviously it's Monaco, you expect weird things to happen. But this is beyond bizarre, this qualifying session thus far, and it sounds to me that Tim Matt's just explaining in the chat that he got disqualified for letting people through while they were on their laps, so, and the game black flagged him for blocking the pit lane, so that's not something that should have happened. So that's a few drivers already being unfairly compromised going into the race. Let's go on board with Bando Biz, but he's invalidated his lap. I'll go on board with Hulkenberger there, not someone who is terribly enthusiastic about tonight's race, but we'll see how he does. And Bando Biz actually has just crashed. So just as I went off board with Bando Biz, what a disaster for AlphaTauri. Both cars out of qualifying. Sam crashed in the pit lane and Bando Biz crashed after invalidating his lap. Franz Tost will be shaking his head. He will be absolutely livid with that. Hulkenberger goes across the line. He does improve, but he stays down in 14. Now let's go on board with our current pole position sitter, which is PB Racing, as he's on yet another lap. And he's marginally up in Sector 1. Comes up now to the hairpin. On full lock, of course, around here. This is not... It's an opportunity for overtakes potentially, but it's so difficult to fit two of these wide cars through that corner as he goes through Portier now into the tunnel. He's got a car just in front of him, which is Felix, who stays well out of the way. And now into the Nouvelle chicane. That was nicely hooked up there. Small lock up on the front left, but into Tabac now. We've taken out took a lot of bravery through there. That looks very nice indeed. Now through the swimming pool chicane. Got to get as close to the wall as possible without kissing it. And now breaking into Raskas, and again another lock up. But through Anthony Nove's corner, and this has been a really nice lap here from Bryn as he goes across the line to extend his pole position margin to 2 tenths with a 108.4. And that looks like a very nice lap indeed. Ugi Azim is also on a better lap, currently in 4th. And he doesn't actually improve at the end, he stays 4th. But Nick Mania, the new McLaren driver, goes to provisional pole on a 108.2. Very, very nice lap. And McLaren needed a shot in the arm, and it looks like that's exactly what they've got with that lap. TNR Jonas is invalidated again. Look, this is quite incredible, really, looking at the grid at the moment. We're really seeing a mixed up grid as Dimsky slightly taps the wall on the exit of the swimming pool. But this is going to be an improvement for him, providing he gets the last corner right, a little bit wider than I think he would have wanted. But he goes across the line to go up to 4th. So the reserve for tonight, putting in a good show and putting it onto the second row of the grid for now. Who have we got out there who's on a lap? I don't think they'll be going for us. Some drivers might go for 2 flying laps. That's something to be careful of. As TB sends back out there on a set of mediums, interestingly. We've seen some real splits across the grid here, of course. It is common knowledge that those on the pad will have a disadvantage to those on the wheel tonight. It's a much better track for the wheel. So that could impact things as Morgan invalidates again. But nevertheless, there's some drivers towards the back end who are really struggling at the moment. Let's go on board with Free Gloves in the Alfa Romeo. Currently down in 12th. Another driver who's had a pretty solid start to the season. Up to now, and he is on a better lap through the swimming pool. That was nicely, certainly into the entry point of the chicane. And again, you're going to see plenty of lockups into Raskas. And now through Anthony Noves. This is going to be a definite big improvement for Free Gloves here. Where does it put him? It puts him up to 7th on a 109.7. So a decent effort from Free Gloves. Vapor Zero's not going any quicker. Suarez is back in the pits. Is Vapor Zero going any quicker through the middle part of a lap? Not really. Struggling to find time at the moment. Let's stay on board with him, but we will, just to see if he improves. Hulkenberg's about to start a lap in front of him. He stays down in 12th, no improvement for him in the end, and he hits the wall at the exit of Sandoval, which will not help him. He'll probably have to return to the pits there, and he's going to be in a race against time to get another lap in, so that's a big blow for him. But let's go on board with Felix, second in the championship. He's not been off the podium yet this season, but right now he's staring at a really disappointing qualifying, as Hulkenberg has crashed out, so he won't be improving either. You can see already so many drivers struggling here in qualifying, and it does not bode well when they've got 39 laps in front of them in the race. But Felix here has been so quick and consistent in the first 4 rounds, but this is looking like it could be his worst qualifying yet. What can he do? He's got Vapor Zero in front of him, who gets out of the way very nicely. But he's just on board with Felix here. He doesn't look overly comfortable around this track. That looks a little bit better, sort of gaining confidence as the lap goes on. Through Raskas now and into the Antonovs. This could be his last effort at qualifying, so it needs to be a good one for Felix. What does it do for him? It moves him up to 10th, still almost 2 seconds off pole, and Vapor Zero's retired now as well. Just going to see who's out there and who's looking. Let's go on board with PB Racing. He had pole position taken off him by Nick Mania on the last attempt, and we saw he looks very, very dialed into this Monaco track. It slightly brushes the wall there, and now into the swimming pool. He's really good in for it, but he's invalidated in his attempts to improve, and that could be that unless he's got enough fuel to do another lap, although he gets a truckload of oversteer, which won't help him at all. What's Marcus going to do up to the line? He was third. He stays third. Does not improve. Ugi Azim's on a better lap, but I think he's backed off. I think he's made a mistake somewhere because he's backed off. Yes, that's the end of his qualifying. What's Game Freaker up to? Currently in 5th. These are the last attempts for a lot of his drivers, and I have to say there's a lot of drivers not looking dialed into this track right now. This is going to be a really, really interesting race to see how this develops. Game Freaker was in 6th, moves up to 5th. There's a 10th of a second quicker, and that does move him up a place. Morgan's the one driver I want to keep an eye on as well. Another driver near the sharp end of the championship who's not looked terribly comfortable up to now in qualifying. He's 9th at the moment. It would do him a massive favour if he could just move up even a couple of places. And he does so. He goes 6th. That could be a crucial lap for him at the end of qualifying. His teammate is also now in the final sector through the swimming pool chicane. It doesn't look like anyone's got the pace to take this pole position away from Nick Mania, so barring any late drama, he's got pole position pretty much in the bag as TV Sen moves up a place to go 8th. Felix is going for one last attempt, 10th place, 2 seconds off pole. Nick Mania improves further and does a 1:08.0. He is absolutely on fire here at Monaco this evening. Nearly 4 tenths clear of his nearest competition. What can Felix do? This is going to be his last effort in qualifying. I don't believe there's anyone else out there, so Felix stays 10th, doesn't improve. He does go above his main championship rival, though, Jonas, who is 11th, so there you go. What a turn up for the books that qualifying session was. Not the result I would have expected at all, but here is your grid. Nick Mania takes a brilliant pole position. We've got PB Racing alongside him on the front row. Marcus in 3rd, Dimsky in 4th, Game Freaker in 5th. Morgan took 6th, Ugi in 7th, TB Sen is 8th, Free Gloves in 9th, Felix completes the top 10. We've got Jonas starting 11th, Vapor Zero will move up to 12th, Hulkenberger will be 13th. You've got the 2 AlphaTauris who both crashed in qualifying in 14th and 15th, and then you've got Packer will be starting in 16th. Tim Matz will start from the back by what sounds of it like a very harsh disqualification from qualifying. Well, that was your qualifying session. I have to say, I've not seen a league racing grid look that spread apart for a long time. And look at the weather for the race. it makes you wonder, did some drivers maybe lean more towards a wet setup? But I tell you what, with the amount of crashes we saw in dry qualifying, this race is going to be really a case of just surviving. I think we're going to see a lot of carnage here. And I wish the drivers all the very best. I'd much rather it's them than me out in those conditions. But this is going to be quite a dramatic session. 39 laps in front of the drivers. It will be Nick Mania leading us away from pole position with PB Racing in second. Not the front row, I'll admit, I would have predicted coming into this. But nevertheless, it really is going to be quite an exciting race. All 17... Actually, no. So Tim Matz goes above Paco. So Paco will start from last. Oh, yeah, because he was 12, wasn't he? Yeah, so Paco drops to the back of the grid. I've got to say, Tim Matz and Paco very, very unlucky to be where they are. Unfortunately, just some issues with the game have caused them. And some doubts in the chat about as to the setups of those cars near the front. So a lot of drivers may be thinking that those at the front haven't gone for a wet setup and could find themselves in trouble as a result in the race. Let's have a look. I imagine everyone's on wet tyres. Yep. No surprises there. Full wet tyres for everyone. And expect this to be an absolute war of attrition here tonight. Could be quite a few safety cars potentially too. And of course, qualifying outside the top 10 is not even an advantage now either, because you're all forced to start on wet tyres. Morgan might look at this as a potential opportunity at the top of the championship to get some points on his two rivals. They're both a few positions behind him, and he could do some damage. We know he's got great pace, and if he's got the right setup on his car, he could try and maybe go on a charge. But of course, as we know here at Monaco, track position is absolutely crucial. So Nick Mania will know, even if he does have a dry setup on, you know, all he's got to do, as long as he keeps it on in the road, it's going to be tough for anyone to overtake him until it comes to the pit stop phase. As all the cars line up on the grid, and we are very close now to getting underway here. This really is the duel that nearly all drivers want to win. There's nothing quite like the feeling of a Monaco race victory. And for these 17 drivers, they all have the opportunity to get that on their CV tonight. Here we go, the lights are on. And they go out, and everyone's going to be struggling away for grip as they get down to turn one. It's an excellent start from Marcus, who already makes the jump on PB Racing. He's had a shocking start. Where's PB Racing gone to? He's absolutely fallen down the field. And Nick Mania leads us away. Marcus is in second. It looks then like we've got further down, it's the other McLaren of Dimsky who's up to third, and we Game Freaker in fourth. It's PB Racing who's dropped to fifth, so he's had a nightmare start, and we've already got a Mercedes Marcus nearly round there. I don't know if that was because of contact, but Nick Mania already trying to charge away, and you can see how much the cars are struggling here through the opening lap. It really is an absolute test for these drivers, just getting used to the conditions in this opening lap of the race. But it's Nick Mania that leads, Marcus second, Dimsky third, Game Freaker is in fourth. We've got PB Racing in fifth, who's trying to put some pressure on Game Freaker, trying to recover after that awful start he had. From second on the grid to be down to fifth, especially with such a short run to turn one. That's a real disaster for the Red Bull. And now he's just got to try and just settle in now and get used to his conditions. I think everyone now just settled into the race and will be looking to build on the start. But yeah, Nick Mania got exactly the start he would have wanted under no pressure whatsoever. And he's managed to drive away at the front. And what's going to be interesting to see now is who looks like they've got the right setup on their car, because there were some doubts about the drivers at the front and what setups they had on. And we've got two cars in the pits, so we've got damage further down the field. That's Tim Matz and Paco Suarez, who are both in the pits. The two drivers who are starting qualifying, as is Hulkenberger, So two guys who really got disadvantaged in quali have now picked up damage too and have had to return to the pits. It's going to be a tough race for them from there, but Nick Maney is just driving away at the moment. He's almost 2 seconds clear of Marcus, so if he did have a dry setup on his car, he's making it work in a race for him, and he's just pulling away. And you can see already gaps starting to form through a field, obviously with the fact that it's Monaco and also the spray. It's really tough to stay close to the guy in front. Marcus has already got a penalty for corner cutting, so that's not good at all for him so early on in this race. And Morgan nearly losing the back end of a car at the exit of a Nouvelle chicane, but managing to sweep it back up again. And yeah, Morgan currently in 6th place. It's not too bad. Jonas lost a place on the start to his teammate, Vapor Zero. Felix has stayed where he is. And yeah, at the moment, Nick Maney looking pretty solid out front. It's Dimsky who's done the fastest lap of the race though, so the other McLaren looking pretty solid as well, and it must be a delight for the Woking outfit to be in 1st and 3rd after the struggles they've had this season so far. Oh, and very, very wide there from Marcus. Just avoided the wall, but that was a big mistake there from the Mercedes driver and not looking at home in these conditions. And that's allowed Nick Mania to pull a bit of a bigger gap. That was a big mistake there, and luckily for him, he avoided the wall through Massenet. But so easily done here, as we've got Sam now in the pits as well. So more troubles for those towards the back end of the field. Sam is back out on the track, but obviously had to pit for wing damage. And Nick Mania's gap now to 2.6 seconds. He's got it perfect at the moment, because the last thing you want in these conditions is the spray from the car in front. Nick Mania doesn't have that issue at all. He can just get on with things and just not have to worry about going into any issues with the spray and visibility, as Dimsky now picks up a penalty as well. Really, it's all at his early part of the race, it's all falling into places. PB Racing nearly took a too tight of a line into Raskas and made slight contact with a wall. He got away without any damage, but he was very lucky not to spin there. As Morgan now looks at a potential overtake into turn 1, but has to think better of it. Got a bit of a good run up the hill, but it's so difficult to know what to do with that, as Hook has a 10-second penalty for corner cutting. That must have been quite a severe one, and we've got a safety car because Sam is out, has crashed out of the race, and that's Nick Mania's gap that he built up wiped out, because we're now under safety car conditions. And we have our first retirement of the session, and it is Sam who, in all honesty, from the moment he crashed in the pit lane in qualifying, hasn't looked comfortable. He admitted he'd had no practice coming into tonight, and well, if you don't practice for Monaco, it can easily bite you, and that has been the case for him today. Trying to see where he crashed it if possible, but as Hulk returns to the pits, he's having an absolute nightmare at the moment, but at least with a safety car he can pit again and rejoin the back of the pack. And what we've got going on there, we've got a change in position happening under safety car conditions. For briefly at least, Vapor Zero got in front of Felix, but that position's now been handed back again. And I have to say, I would be very shocked if this is the only safety car we have this race. Based on the fact that auto drivers were suggesting a wet setup, it begs the question that this weather probably isn't going anywhere quickly. Oh, and a real disaster. What's happening here? We've got both Ferraris in the pits. Well, that's going to be no good for TB Sen. He's going to have to queue. He's having his front wing changed. I wonder if Morgan needed the same. So both Ferraris coming into the pits. I suggest that's unscheduled. You wouldn't really want to pit under the safety car unless you had damage. And you can see Ugi Azim and Bando Biz also in as well for a nose change. So that takes the two Ferraris out of the equation, really. Or I say out of the equation, Morgan's still in 10th. Just thanks to all the problems other drivers have been having. But I think thanks to having to queue, TB Sen has lost a position to Ugi, so Ugi's gained 1 place out of that, despite having to pit. And we're just going back on board now with the race lead events, and well, second place. Nick Mania leads, Marcus in second, Dimsky remains in third, and the top 5 completed by Game Freak and PB Racing, with now 3 Gloves up to second, or 6th, sorry. Felix in 7th, Vapor Zero in 8th, and TNR Jonas in 9th. In terms of what this might do as well for the Constructors' Championship, coming into this round, it was a 12-point lead with Racing Point. And although they both are in the points right now, it's sort of a tail end of the points, so that's going to be no good for them right now. You got Ferrari in second, but they're struggling in these early stages. Potentially, if there is one team that are sort of near the top who might potentially gain out of this, it could be Williams. It could be Williams. It just depends really on what Paco can do now, but he's obviously now called back up to the pack. There's no doubt about it, there's going to be plenty more moments and incidents before this race is out, so what might be the order now is very unlikely to still be the order in 33 laps time. So far so good for Nick Mania. He's led from the front. Got a little bit of help at the start with PB Racing, who started alongside him on the front row, having a slow getaway. But so far he's driven pretty well, pretty composed, and he's doing a good job. And Marcus has picked up another penalty under the safety car, which is slightly bizarre, because I mean at the speed you're going at over, you know, it's a bit of a weird one to be have to say. And Marcus is going to have to be careful here, because picking up 2 penalties in the space of 6 laps could leave him vulnerable later on, even to disqualification if he keeps on picking up penalties at this rate. I think we're going to have another lap under the safety car, because Hulk is nowhere near caught up yet. So I suspect we're going to have another lap under the safety car before we get back underway, to give the Renault a chance to catch up. Of course, Nick Mania will now see the fact that the 2 behind him have penalties, so that might put his mind at ease a little bit more. And we've got a penalty, Vapor Zero. Well, TNR Jonas would have been the car behind. Has he got damage from that, I wonder? Yeah, I think he has, you know. Yep, the championship leader, TNR Jonas, is in the pit lane. There was contact between the 2 Racing Points, and that's a disaster for them. That's the last thing they needed. Vapor Zero has a penalty for it, which could get removed at the end of a race. And of course, the big problem for TNR Jonas is he's going to have to pit for a new front wing, and he's going to drop right down to 15th place. So that's a real disaster for him. And he'll get out in front of Hulk, but other than that, well, he'll definitely be out in front of Hulk, because Hulk's in the pits again. Has he broken another front wing? He has indeed. More problems for the Renault driver. Really not enjoying his time at Monaco this evening. And well, I don't think he'll catch up to the safety car in time. So I've got to imagine the safety car is going to come in at the end of this lap. So that's a real big blow for him. Try and keep you calm in these conditions while everyone around him is losing theirs, and Hulk gets another penalty just to add to his issues, this time for crossing the pit lane exit white line. So yeah, just not the day Hulk would have wanted, judging from his pre-race faults. He wasn't really expecting much else. And we are getting a safety car coming in, but of course with it all bunching up, we are seeing penalties, and look at that, we've got several penalties. And potentially, I wonder if we're going to have any damage on the cars as well. Nick Mania bunching the cars up. Oh, look at that, another penalty for Paco, and Bando Biz sharing paintwork. As we get back underway, Dimsky's in the pit, so he did pick up damage. We're back underway, and it looks like Marcus actually got a pretty good getaway. And he's not going to look for moving to turn 1, but Nick Mania hits the wall! And Marcus goes into him as a result. Has Nick Mania got away without damage? Surely there'll be some damage on the front of that McLaren. I guess we'll find out the longer this lap goes on. Yeah, he must have damage. I think he's definitely going very slowly. And Marcus is going to go down the inside and make a move for the lead. Oh, but there's no space given by Nick Mania. So I think he has damage, but he still doesn't want to let Marcus go. And that was into Mirabeau, and that was always going to be a bit tricky. Now through Portier, and is there anything Marcus could do into the Nouvelle Chicane perhaps? He's using overtake, so he clearly thinks the move's there to be made. He has a massive oversteer moment through the tunnel, but there's nowhere for him to go. When he gets down to the Nouvelle Chicane, and Marcus has hit the inside wall. Marcus has hit the inside wall, and that brings an end to his challenge for the lead. It's all going off here. We've got a race leader with potential damage. Third place, Dimsky went into the pits. And now we've got the Mercedes and Marcus crashing at the Nouvelle Chicane. It's all going off here. And you just got no idea which way this race is going from one moment to the next. I think Nick Mania's actually got away without damage. I think he was just maybe being slightly cautious after what happened at Saint-Deveau. So Nick Mania's got away without damage, but Marcus is in the pits. And now Game Freaker finds himself in the pits, and Marcus has retired in the pit lane. I'm very surprised about that. I'm guessing it's probably a moment of rage, but you know, there's so long to go here, and he really could have salvaged an excellent result. So yeah, I'm very, very surprised by that. But Marcus has decided he's had enough for tonight and has called it a day there. And just where's the drama going to end? It looks at a moment like Game Freaker may be slightly holding up Bryn behind him. Nick Mania now has nearly got the gap up to 2 seconds out in the lead. He's seeing all his potential challengers fall by the wayside at the moment, and I don't think Game Freaker has enough at the moment to really take the challenge to him. If anything, it's a Red Bull of PB Racing that could maybe put up a fight, but it's so difficult to over. But I have to say, considering how good his pole lap was in the dry, Nick Mania so far at least is doing a very good job. He's gone on, he seems to be coping with it pretty nicely. Let's have a look further down. We've got Morgan in 7th at the moment with Vapor Zero just in front of him. And Jonas is very close to the back of Tim Mats for P11. Two men who have stood on the podium this season, of course, the championship leader in Jonas and Tim Mats, who's currently 4th in the standings. Both of them at the moment outside the points positions. Paco just in front of them. And back. Look at that big. We've got a yellow flag in sector 2. What's that all about? I think that's Paco Suarez who's gone round, and you can see the damage. He's got major damage. That's coming out the tunnel. So obviously maybe through that kink in the tunnel he's lost the rear end of the car, and that's a bitter blow for him as he gets a penalty. And I do wonder if he's going to pull it into the pits and call it a day, because he didn't seem too eager to want to make that chicane. Oh, and look at that, he's fully destroyed his wing through to back. So it's all going wrong for the Williams driver right now, and he just wants to get it back to the pits. And have we got a further problem further down the field? What's happened to Bando Biz? Yeah, he's going slowly as well. What on earth am I seeing? He's gone straight into the wall, and he's now got major front wing damage too. More cars out there struggling tremendously at the moment. And this really is becoming a race of attrition. I get the feeling we're going to have a few more retirements in the next few laps. Will Paco just change his front wing, or is he going to call it a day? I guess we'll have to see. Same with Bando Biz. Yeah, Bando Biz has decided to retire. He's had enough. He becomes our 3rd retirement, and it's a double DNF for the AlphaTauri team. They'll definitely be hoping for better when we get to Monza next week, their home circuit. And as much as Hulkenberg is struggling at the back of the field, I tell you what, if he just keeps going here, he may very well get points come the end of this one. Because we've seen so many drivers experiencing problems. And it would be fair to say that Game Freak in second place isn't particularly lapping all that quickly. All the cars behind him are pretty close, and Nick Mania is just charging at the front. He's now got a 4-second lead over Game Freaker behind. So at the moment, Nick Mania on his debut as a full-time driver could be about to turn McLaren's fortunes around, but we've got such a way to go in this race, and it's so easy to make mistakes. But at least now he's got that advantage. He can maybe play it a little bit more cautiously than he perhaps would do anyway. See gaps forming throughout the field. Let's follow Free Gloves, who's haven't had a quiet race, but he's just quietly going about his own business up in 4th. Just going to have a quick look at Game Freaker's front wing. I don't think he's got damage, but I'm just want to catch a glimpse of it just in case he has. Looks fairly well intact, that front wing, so at the moment he's just struggling for outright pace, and that's allowing Nick Mania to scamper up the road, because there isn't really any overtaking opportunities for the others behind. And you can see, obviously, you don't really, like I say, you don't want to be too close to the car in front because of a spray. So that's why a lot of drivers have kind of got 13, 14 seconds between them. Paco's in the pits again. Is that another change of front wing, perhaps? It is indeed. Thankfully the wet tyres last for a long time, because otherwise he'd be running out of them at this point in the race. But he's back out in 14th, and well, Felix has scored all the points for Williams thus far. There's a good chance that might be continuing. As Tiernar Jonis pits, so has he got damage, the championship leader? Yes, he has. He's having another change of front wing. I believe that's his second front wing change this race. And he's going to drop down to 12th place and be way off the leading group of cars. So he's not having a good time of it either. Right now, Felix will be on for his worst result of the season in 5th. But despite that, it'd be a massive result for him in the championship. Just purely because his championship rivals, Morgan and Jonis, are struggling further down. Although Morgan is in 7th, so he's not doing too badly. But right now, we're on for a real turn-up for the Bucks here. Nick Mania is still extending his gap. It's now over 6 seconds at the front. And he just looks really comfortable in these conditions. You know, it wasn't just in the wet, he was superb in the dry too, so no matter what conditions are going his way, Nick Mania is looking very, very promising here in the wet. Is there anything that Brink can do to get past Game Freaker here? It's so tough. Wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these guys in this group of cars are just trying to keep it on the road at this point. It's so difficult just to keep it out the wall at the moment for these guys. Let's have a look then. Yes, look at that. Hulkenberg's already made 4 stops. You got Paco that's made 3. Jonis has made 2, and then everyone from 7th downwards has made 1 stop. It's only the top 6 that have yet to make a pit stop. It just shows, and all those stops have been for front wing changes. So it just shows how much is going on. And we've got another yellow in sector 2. What's that all about? Is it Tim Matz perhaps? Oh no, I think it's Paco. Yeah, Paco's lost his front wing again, hasn't he? Yes, indeed he has, and he's got to... Yeah. Luckily goes through the Williams car, but yeah, Paco's lost his front wing again. He's having no joy out there at all tonight. And he'll be adding a 4th stop to his collection as well. fact, Paco was crashed on the track. Just as I turned away from him, he's obviously crashed. I doubt it was deliberate because he did have no front wing and he maybe just went into the wall. But yeah, he has crashed and that's brought out to safety car, and Tim Matz is straight in the pits for another change of front wing and another set of wet tyres. So that's his second pit stop. And we're already down to just 13 drivers, and Hulkenberger, if he just keeps going here, could sneak into the points by virtue of just be still racing out there. They will form up once again behind the safety car. Nick Mania's big gap that he'd assembled, over 7 seconds, has been wiped out once again, but he'll feel confident with the pace he's got, but he'll just be able to build that up again if he needs to. Don't be confused by the gap. That is the actual gap. The Renault behind him is not Game Freaker, it's Hulkenberger, who's a lap down. Are we going to see anyone into the pits here just for a change of tyres? I really doubt it, because I think the wets around here will just last forever. There's no real need to pit. And Nick Mania will not want to lose the race lead. But he does pit, so maybe he does think it's best to pit. What does Game Freaker do? Okay, they're all pitting then, that's interesting. Maybe the tyres don't last as long as I suspected they did. Yep, all the top 6 are in the pits. Of course, the other thing is, are we going on to winters? Is it drying up perhaps? No, it looks like they're all switching to west, but Morgan and Oogie carry on. Survey will be in the lead here. So Morgan and Oogie carry on. Morgan now leads Oogie in second. Nick Mania rejoins in third. So this is now going to be interesting. Nick Mania's had it all his own way out at the front, but will that change now that he's behind a couple of cars? And now Morgan's got clear air in front of him. How quick will he be? Because I've got to be honest, I thought he'd be a little bit faster than what he's shown thus far. So that's really switched things up then. So your race order now is Morgan in the lead, Oogie second, Nick Mania in third, Game Freaker fourth, PB Racing in fifth. We've got Free Gloves in sixth, Felix down to seventh. Dimsky has recovered to eighth, which isn't too bad after his drama early on. TB Sen is ninth, Vapor Zero completes the top 10. And then you got Tim Matz, Jonas and Hulkenberger, who now will be a lap down, but it's going to take him such a long time to close up to the back of the pack. In part due to his 4 stops that he's made, of course. Of course, Morgan and Oogie will have 11 lap old wets on compared to the guys behind who have got fresh wets. So it'll be interesting how much that plays a part at the restart. But it is Morgan in the lead at the moment as the safety car leads them round, and Hulkenberger tries desperately to catch up. Also, we've already had 4 retirements from this race. Dimsky actually pit, so does he want fresh wets or is he wanting a change of nose? That's a terrible angle to be able to tell. But yeah, I think he had a change of wing, so that would explain it. Dimsky drops then back down to 12th with that, but he will have fresh wets on. So see if that pays him any dividends on the restart. Of course, it's so tricky under safety car conditions, especially when the safety car comes in and everyone bunches up, just to avoid hitting someone and potentially getting a penalty or front wing damage. We saw that on the last safety car restart, but there was a couple of issues there, so hopefully this is a bit more of a cleaner restart. Of course, we have got a different driver that will become the effective safety car soon. That'd be Morgan. See, Hulk's got such a long way to go to catch up to the safety car. Will it come in this lap? We're about to find out, I guess. No sign of it yet. And that looks like we've got another lap under safety car conditions. So another lap for everyone's tyres to get cold, basically. Which is not ideal. And I have to say, for Game Freaker, certainly, he's not really proven that he's one of the quickest here tonight, but he's just driven super consistently throughout, and that's put him into a really good position here. So if he can just keep doing that, I mean, it's quite evident tonight that pace is not the main key thing to getting a good result. It's going to be all about consistency. I'm just keeping. I mean, Hulk's not actually closing the safety car down that quickly. Of course, with it being in the full wet conditions, the safety car won't actually be going that much slower than these guys would at full pace anyway. So that's, and we've seen that in the past, I believe, at one of the wet races, where I believe that the race leader actually told the safety car to slow down a bit because it was going too quickly. So, whereas usually in the driver telling them to speed up. So safety car can never quite get it right for the drivers. And we'll follow Ugi in second place as the safety car surely comes in this lap, and yes indeed it does. Hulk will probably not quite catch up the pack in time, but he won't be too far behind either. And hopefully everyone just keeps it clean on the restart. Certainly if I was driving, I would just keep a little bit of a gap just to avoid any potential collisions that might occur. Morgan tries desperately to get some temperature in his tyres. And then out of Anthony Nose he goes, and he will now put his foot to the floor. We're back underway here at Monaco. The second safety car stint is over, and oh, I think I saw a bit there. I don't know if that was just a bit of debris from the track, if anything. It looks like Game Freak was very close, but Game Freak's actually coming under pressure from Bryn, who makes a move, and Bryn's going to make another move too. Oh, and he's getting all super close there, Game Freaker. Game Freaker losing a couple of places there. Game Freaker's lost another place. He got damage on that Renault. Look how close this is. It's getting super bunched up here through Mirabeau. And oh, and Game Freaker's into the wall. There was contact between him and the McLaren of Nick Mania. These two falling down the order at the restart. And that was definite damage on the Renault's front wing. So disaster there for Game Freak on the restart. It all started with Bryn going up the inside. I don't know if they collected contact or damage prior to that, which maybe caused them to slow down, because Nick Mania and Game Freak had shocking restarts. But nevertheless, they're down quite a few positions, and now Game Freak is going to try and look up the inside of Nick Mania, but there's not enough room into the Nouvelle chicane, and he just has to back out of it on that one. But look how close as well PB Racing is to Ugi for P2 as Morgan tries to scamper into the distance. Got so much more grip on those fresh tyres as Game Freak now picks up a penalty to add to his woes on this lap, and I wonder if we'll see any cars in the pit lane due to some damage, because it looks like Nick Mania, yeah, Nick Mania and Game Freak are both in the pits, and that's not surprising. So they picked up damage. I wonder if that was just before the restart, because cars went past them so quickly. So the guys who were first and second before the last safety car and now find themselves in the pits with significant damage, and both Renaults and both McLarens are now at the back of the field, and Hulkenberger quite incredibly finds himself up to 10th place. It's all changed once again. Morgan leading Ugi second and PB Racing back up to third. In all this you've then got Free Gloves and Felix, who have just been the quiet men of this race, just gone about their business very, very quietly, but find themselves now in 4th and 5th. And it's now just going to be a question really of what PB Racing can do. PB Racing can do now that Morgan is in the lead, and obviously these two at the front are on much older wet tyres, but as I say, that Bryn gets a 3-second penalty, so that won't do his race any good at all. And you can see a major gap that's developed between 5th and 6th place TB Sen, almost 4 seconds behind 5th place Felix. I wonder if that was just due to the carnage that was going on when there was contact between Nick Mania and Game Freaker. That could very well be the case. That gap's opened up as a result of that. Morgan not building out too much of a lead now. It's kind of stabilised at 1.5 seconds over Ugi, who's doing an excellent job in 2nd place, it has to be said. Building on last week's 4th place at France, which I also thought was a very good drive from him. And Dimsky is out of a race. He's retired in the pit lane, so not a crash, he's just decided to call it a day there. So we are now down to 12 drivers. Dimsky, the reserve for this evening, has become our 5th retirement on the race. And as I sort of predicted back at the start of the race, this has just become a real question of attrition at this point. It's losing so many cars from this race. And let's see what PB Racing can do. He's definitely quicker than Ugi, there's no doubt about that, but finding an overtake is very tricky unless the car in front picks up damage. Morgan has had a bit of a sluggish lap, it has to be said. I wonder if he's collected some damage, because he's going quite slowly at the moment, and Ugi's got the gap below a second, so I'm just going to go quickly with the Ferrari just to see if I can spot anything. Doesn't look any noticeable damage from what I can see. But yeah, Morgan having a bit of a sluggish lap here, which has allowed the 2nd and 3rd place drivers to close in. Dimsky has left the session. Vapor Zeros all over the back of TB Sen, as Nick Mania just shows how quick he is by doing the fastest lap. TNR Jonas is in the pits again for a front wing change, so our championship leader's having a real nightmare tonight. And he's I think he's just on a recovery mission now, see if he can get any points towards the back end of this race. Anything that a championship contender can salvage from a bad race is very valuable going forwards. So, and he'll know that after winning the F7 League last season. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. Morgan's definitely struggling for pace a little bit more now. But unfortunately, there's nothing that Bryn can do about this at the moment. But you can see it's bringing Free Gloves and Felix into play as well. So the top 5 bunching up closer and closer now. And, well, of course, if there is no safety car from now to the end, which is a big if, but if there isn't, how will Morgan and Ugi's tyres be come the end of the race? Getting to a real pivotal point now of the action tonight. And maybe that's just Bryn's hope. If he stays patient, opportunities will arise later on. You can see, and just with the spray, how much it affects your visibility. But I guess right now, with the extra pace he has, he's got no choice but to stay right on the Haas's gearbox. Go through a tunnel, a little a massive moment through the tunnel, and that was very nearly Bryn with a massive crash into the wall. He did well to hold that. Ugi himself has a moment now coming out of the Nouvelle Chicane, manages to sweep it up before he gets to back, thankfully, but you can see drivers still struggling for grip out there. They might have got used to these conditions, but it doesn't make them any easier. I think there was a bit of contact there against the Raskas inside wall there for Bryn, so in his eagerness to try and get a move done, he is making a few small little errors. And if anything, now he's got Free Gloves right behind him, but there's, thankfully for PB Racing's sake, the first corner arrives before Free Gloves has a chance to mount an attack. But all of a sudden, rather than looking in front of him, he's looking in his mirrors. And you can see the top two escaping up the road. Bryn, all of a sudden, looking like he's really struggling. And I don't think he collected damage, but he's having a bit of a lull in his charge. As we've got Hulkenberger in the pits in the Renault, and that will be for a 5th pit stop, which is quite incredible, really. Bryn starts to get the hammer down again. He lost a lot of time to the top two. He's still not really finding a lot of pace. That's the problem though with Monaco as well. If you do get snapped out your rhythm by a few little moments, it can be very difficult to regain that rhythm again. And in fact, Bryn pits, so he must have had some damage. Didn't quite catch it, unfortunately. He might have caught it through Rascas, but it looked very mild. But Bryn has indeed had to pit. He goes into intermediates. So is the rain just easing up here slightly? Because we've got Felix in the pits too, so Bryn takes the opportunity to replace his front wing and take on intermediate tyres. What's Felix doing? He's also going for intermediates and a change in front wing, so we have got a few drivers in the pits making the switch onto inters as well as getting a new front wing, and if this pays off for them, that could be a big game changer in this race, no doubt about it. Felix is going to rejoin just... Is he going to be in front of those behind Game Freaker? That's potentially pivotal. He really wouldn't have wanted to be in traffic. And now I guess we find out, what do the top two do? Just keeping an eye out on the gap between PB Racing and Nick Mania in front, just to see if those intermediates are indeed working. At the moment it looks like he's still losing a bit of time, so... Maybe a lap, still a lap maybe outside of the window for intermediates. Does maybe look like the rain's eased off a little bit. What does Morgan do? Morgan carries on, so he doesn't pit. Neither does Oogie, neither does Freeglove, so these guys do not feel the need to switch on to the intermediate tyres yet, so... Difference... I wonder if those guys just sort of went for the intermediates in a way because it was ready, but also because they could then get their nose changed at the same time. We've got a yellow flag in sector 1. That's Morgan. The race leader Morgan has lost the lead. What's happened there? He's had contact with the wall because he's got damage on the left-hand side of his front wing. So Morgan's had some contact with the wall and he's lost out to Oogie, and he will have to pit as well. So it's all gone wrong for the race leader again. That's 2 weeks in a row that Morgan's led the race, and of course last week it was due to a safety car that it went wrong. This week it's due to contact with a wall, and he will surely have to come in the pits, and I wonder if he too will fit intermediates. Nick Mania's fitted intermediates as well, probably saw the pace of that Red Bull behind him and opted for the switch. But what will be interesting here, what will Oogie and Freegloves do? I think Nick Mania is the first driver to switch tyres without actually needing a replacement front wing. So will the top two feel the need to do the same, I wonder? For Oogie round, obviously Morgan will definitely come in the pits. Oogie carries on, and so does Morgan despite the damage. He's opting to stay out. That's, I have to say, that's very surprising. We've got a real difference in strategies here, and Freegloves knows he wants to make a move stick. And a good thing for the Red Bull of PB Racing now is he's got clear air in front of him. He's got 13 seconds until he catches up to his teammate. So this really is interesting. And what will be the real key here is if he can get the fastest lap, it will surely trigger everyone else into pitting too. Hulk has also opted for the intermediates, as has Jonas. That'll be Hulkenberger's 6th stop, believe it or not. He'll nearly be running out of tyres at this rate. It's a good job that they're switching on to intermediates. Ugi's trying to scarp up the road, but even with the damage Morgan's got, Ugi's not exactly flying up the road. And Free Gloves, understandably, not taking it pretty cautiously. There's no need to throw a move up the inside, but he very nearly went into the wall to bat there after missing the apex. F7 not the only tier with a wet race tonight. F9 also had a wet race. Mr. Grumpy started last and finished 4th. Well done to him on that one. Just shows when you do get a wet Monaco, grid position isn't as important anymore. Well, these are treacherous conditions. Even so, Free Gloves getting closer into Sandovo, but still no way through. And Tim Max has obviously seen the pace of his teammate, and he's going on to intermediates as well. I won't be surprised if that's been communicated to him by his teammate. But I have to say, PB Racing's absolutely flying at the moment, and I wouldn't be at all surprised. Let's see if I can see fastest lap quickly. Well, I'm still on a 25.5, but yeah, Nick Mays a 24.7, so yeah, there's no doubt about it. PB Racing absolutely flying right now on his inters, and I wonder if it's going to trigger some pit stops in front of him. But I have to say right now, this is all falling into the hands of Ugi, because he can pull away from Morgan, who's nursing a damage. But we've seen already, this race just keeps changing hands all the time. You're never quite sure where it's going to go next. We've got a yellow flag in sector 2. What's that all about? Trying to see if I can find out. Is that... Not sure. That might have been for Jonas, actually. Oh, no, it's for Hulk. It's for Hulkenberger. And he will have to make a 7th pit stop. He has lost it. I believe that was around the Nouvelle Chicane area. I wonder if these top 5 are just going to stay out to the end on full wets, because essentially I'll get into that stage now, but if they do pit, they're going to lose out to PB Racing. So they're almost forcing themselves to stay out, but this is falling perfectly into Ugi's hands. As Free Gloves looks for a move down the inside on Morgan. He's fed up of waiting behind the car that's got damage. Hulkenberger's out the race. He's retired in the pit lane. So he's obviously elected that points just are not going to happen for him today. Free Gloves is getting, well, I can understandably quite impatient now behind Morgan, because he knows he can go a lot quicker. But he needs to make sure he gets the move done safely. The last thing he needs is he dives up the inside into the Nouvelle Chicane. Morgan gives it space, but there's not enough space, and Free Gloves hit the wall out of the Nouvelle Chicane, hit the inside wall, and he's lost out to TB Sen and Vapor Zero in his attempt to get past the stricken Ferrari. He has made contact with a wall and drops to 5th. He'll be absolutely gutted about that, and hopefully he can carry on. I don't think he's got any big damage on his car. Yeah, so that's fine to continue, but he's lost track position from 3rd down to 5th. That's going to be a real big shame for him, and you can just see the extent in which PB Racing is really closing in on these guys. Vapor Zero still looking to get past TB Sen, which is now, of course, for the final podium spot. After Free Gloves' problems, of course, none of the top 5 have any penalties, which is kind of what we like to see, really. You don't want races to be decided ultimately by penalties. But I have to say, all of a sudden, even with Morgan's damage, he's going to make big championship inroads here on Jonas and Felix. This is a really big, important race for Morgan. And I tell you what, his teammate here could do him a massive favour if he can keep these 2 cars behind. We could see here Ferrari working together to really maximise Morgan's championship hopes. Of course, next week we are pretty much at the polar opposite to Monaco. We're racing at Monza, so it's going to be a real interesting one to see how that goes. I think we're going to see a completely different style of race to what we've seen here tonight. The thing is, PB Racing is going to charge up to this group of cars, but then what's he going to do? He's going to have to try and find some overtakes, but it's not going to be easy at all. Another potential thing to look out for as well is that Game Freaker on wet tyres might start to come under pressure from Felix and Tim Mats, who are on inters. That's for P7. But right now, Ugi's surely thinking if he can just keep this going to the end, he's got a win pretty much sealed up here. Morgan's not really going to be much of a threat behind, but you can see now that TB Sen is closing up to his teammate, and how will Ferrari work this situation out? I think TB Sen's got damage as well, you know. I just caught a glimpse of that Ferrari. Oh, look at him! Morgan having a massive moment. Yeah, I think on the right hand side of the front wing, TB Sen's got damage. So maybe it's just affecting Morgan more because of the side of the front wing that he has damaged, but both Ferraris do have damage of some sort. So this explains really the lack of pace that they have right now. But there's just nowhere for Vapor Zero, Free Gloves, or the fast approaching PB Racing to go with it. And all of this is just allowing the Hasavugi to scamper up the road. His teammate might not have raced tonight, Tom AJ, but it could still be a triumphant day for Haas if he can keep it going. There are just 8 laps to go here at Monaco, and we are really getting now to the crucial juncture of this race, and I'm very interested to see what PB Racing does. He just does the fastest lap of the race, and look at how much he's gaining on this group of cars ahead. We're going to go on board with him here. He's going to have so much more traction, but is there anything he can do with it when he gets there? We've got Felix as well, who's right up behind Game Freaker now for 7th. There's no doubt about it now, intermediates are a better tyre than the full wets. It might be partly down to the tyre, it might also be down to the fact they're just a lot younger. But nevertheless, the intermediates are the better tyre right now, and you can see, just look how quickly he's caught up to him. Freegles runs a bit wide. And this is going to be such a crucial point now for PB Racing. This is where his race could be won or lost. Is he going to make a move into the Nouvelle Chicane? He thinks about it, but it's not worth taking the risk. Vapor Zero picks up a penalty, and that's going to be all important come the end of a race. We know Bryn already has a penalty, so he really needs to try and make some positions up here if he can. But there's such a big train of cars now behind second place Morgan. He could have pitted, but he opted for track position and to stay out and just manage the damage. But this is, as a result now, he probably knew he'd come under pressure, but he probably doesn't quite believe the train of cars that's now formed behind him. And it's what I feared, unfortunately. PB Racing has the speed, but where does he go with it? He's going to have to try and find some quite incredible moves here as we go into Massenet. And now into Mirabeau. He's looking down the inside of Free Gloves. That's a brave move through there. Free Gloves keeps it going, but there's car contact between the racing point, and it could be a traffic jam here if they're not careful, but they managed to both somehow get through the hairpin unscathed. There's more contact. Free Gloves trying to hang it out around the outside, but PB Racing has the move done. Wow, that's incredible to stay side by side through Monaco in full wet conditions through so many corners. But PB Racing eventually got the move done. Of course there was a bit of contact, but I mean, to make a move at Monaco you've almost got to have a little bit of contact for it to work. And Free Gloves drops down to 6, and next up on PB Racing's hit list will be the Racing Point of Vapor Zero. Look how much more traction he's got. He's hit the back of a Racing Point. He doesn't need to do that, but he's probably just so surprised by the lack of grip these guys have in front of him. He's already made one very, very good move on Free Gloves. What's he going to do about this Racing Point? Nick Mania, what could have been for his race, it has to be said. He was looking so good out in the lead, but ever since that contact with Game Freaker. Oh, look, it's again down the inside of Mirabeau. Thankfully Vapor Zero saw him coming, He really likes that overtaking move, but he's gone into the wall. He was just nowhere for him to go, and he's gone into the wall at the hairpin, and surely that's a little bit of damage on that Red Bull. It is indeed. So he's got damage on the side of his wing. It's so difficult around the hairpin to go too wide. It was always inevitable that something was going to happen. TB Sen's got past his teammate. So Morgan is down to third and his teammate's gone past him. So there's no thinking about a championship yet at Ferrari. TB Sen takes second place and will try and scarper up the road as Morgan continues to struggle. And he may yet lose a podium position here. It's all going to come down to his final 5 laps. Is down the inside of Raskas. PB Racing trying another adventurous overtake. And look how much they're slowing each other down. Game Freaker and Felix are now very much in the fight too. This is an incredible end to Monaco. We've waited 35 laps, but we are now seeing some insane close racing right at the end. And it's all caused by PB Racing, who's got so much pace on those intermediates, but is struggling to know where to use it, and the damage he's now got on his front wing. I think he's got even more now because he's going super slowly. He's really struggling, PB Racing. He's damaged his front wing too much. As Felix now goes up the inside of Game Freaker into Mirabeau. Is he going to be able to make that stick? Yes, he is. Game Freaker gives him the room, and Felix moves up to 7th. And he can probably see his title rival Morgan further up the road here. And there's a real opportunity for the Williams driver to get a few more places here and really do some great damage limitation here tonight. So what can he do? Now he's cleared Game Freaker, we should expect to see Felix make some great progress. There's no doubt about it. Morgan must have picked up more damage because he's even slower than before. And look at this, PB Racing down the inside into... Oh, and there's contact between the pair of them. And they're going super slowly, and this could cause a massive traffic jam. Coming up to a swimming pool chicane, Felix has made his way past Free Gloves. There was contact between PB Racing and Vapor Zero. And PB Racing, in his desperate attempt to make the move stick, is causing a real traffic jam, which Nick Mania and Tim Mats are now joining the back of as well. This is quite incredible. What's worth to put... I wonder... I'm just going to go on board of Oogie briefly. Has Oogie got some sort of damage, or is he just absolutely cruising it? I think he might have a bit of damage, because TV Sen is closing on him quickly. But back to this battle that's going on. Felix finds himself now up to 6th, and Vapor Zero is looking to try and come back at PB Racing, who's now on the back of Morgan. I have to say, into back, that was brave. Brave stuff indeed, and it did cause yet more contact. I don't think there's many cars in this group that don't have damage at this point. Just because the amount of side-by-side action we've had, it's kind of been inevitable ultimately. And Vapor Zero really backed off there. He struggled through a tunnel. Go on board again with a Red Bull driver. He's not close enough to try anything at Tabak this time around. Oh, and look how wide he's gone. That damage is really affecting him. You've got to think the driver in the best position in this group of cars at the moment is Felix, but you know, Felix isn't going to take any unnecessary risks, and I don't blame him for that. TV Sen's got the gap down to 5.6 seconds for the lead. I tell you what, he might be right at this rate. He might be back on Oogie's tail because of the pace that Ferrari's going at, and Oogie clearly isn't. He's either not pushing or he's got damage and he's just driving slowly. And PB Racing, I think his overtaking has kind of taken its toll on his car because he clearly now has no pace and a lot of damage. And I get a feeling as Vapor Zero goes into the back of him, I was going to say, I get the feeling he might lose a position or two at this rate. In terms of penalties, yeah, it's all 3 seconds across the board with the guys that have penalties. So at the moment, Felix is looking in a good position for 4th, which would be a great damage limitation effort. But currently, the top 2, yet to stand on the podium this season, are looking in a mightily good position. It does look like Oogie's responded a little bit. As Vapor Zero goes wide and he spins! Oh, that's a disaster for the Racing Point. Out of a Nouvelle chicane, he has spun and thrown away several positions. Oh, Racing Point, top of the constructors coming into this. I've had a nightmare and he's gone into the wall. And I have to say that was like a deliberate swerve into the wall, I have to be honest. Hopefully it's not a safety car. I don't think it would be at this stage, we've only got 2 laps to go. But yeah, he obviously decided enough was enough and went into the wall to back. Ugi is losing time still though. I think it might just be a case of a Ferrari runs out of laps, but yeah, there's no doubt about it, he's not going quickly. And TB Sen, and you can't help feeling if Morgan had let him through a lap or 2 earlier, there could have been a Ferrari win on the cards here. And all credit goes to TB Sen, he's absolutely charging and doing a fantastic job. Of course, Ugi's wet tyres are 33 laps old, that will not be helping. Neither, and of course Morgan's tyres are the same age, so he'll also... These 2 guys will really be struggling now. Surely those wet tyres are starting to wear out. Is PB Racing going to try and move out the tunnel? He's got great momentum, but he's not quite close enough. Morgan fends him off. Oh, and look at that! Cheeky move down the inside. Felix goes for it on PB Racing. And that's a lovely overtake from Felix. Completely caught off guard there. Even I was, to be fair. But Felix appears up the inside into the Nouvelle chicane. And that's a perfectly executed move. And Felix now moves up to 4th. And he fancies a chance of a podium on the last lap here. This is going to be a really close battle to the end now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Felix gets it because he looks to have a lot more grip than others around him right now. I don't think he's got, if he has got damage, it's nowhere near as much as the car in front of him has. And what can he do then? He's cleared the Red Bull car, and now he's over the back of Morgan. We are on the final lap. Ugi's got enough of an advantage. Look at that, Felix even looking into, wow, what a move that would be, and there's contact between the pair of them. Oh, but they're still alongside each other into Mirabeau. Is Felix going to have the inside line? Yes, he is, and he brakes late enough. He nearly goes into the wall. He brakes so late. And Morgan trying to fight back around the outside of a hairpin. This is going to be a tight squeeze. What can Felix do? He's got a better traction into Portier, and Felix gets into 3rd on the final lap of the race. What a brilliant effort that was. There was a bit of contact between the pair of them. It was an adventurous move, but to be fair, he didn't spin out the Ferrari. And in the end, he got the move done out of the hairpin, just probably with the better tyres at this stage. And fair play to him, that was a great effort. But Ugi Azim has just been out on his own for a while now. He's come under threat in these latter stages from TB Sem, but Ugi's going to come round the final corner. And it's a brilliant effort from him, and he wins the Monaco Grand Prix here in PSGL F7. Great effort from him. TB Sem, superb charge from him at the end to put the pressure on, but he has to make do with 2nd. And Felix retakes the championship lead from TNR Jonas and collects 3rd place. Great effort to get that on the final lap of the race. You can see him going really close to the line there, Free Gloves and Game Freaker, but it's Morgan who takes 4th, Free Gloves in 5th, Tim Matz in 6th, PB Racing in 7th, Game Freaker will take 8th, Nick Mania looked so good for large chunks of that race, but has to make do in 9th. And TNR Jonas, our previous championship leader, does at least salvage the final point in 10th. What an incredible ending to that race that was. But Ugi, probably blissfully unaware of some of what was going off behind him, he's the one who takes the victory here tonight. And very well deserved indeed. He's had a couple of 4th places already this season and shown great potential, and tonight he can stand on the top step of that podium. The Haas team are delighted. I think all the drivers on that podium will be happy. The trials and tribulations of Monaco have been there for all to see, but these 3 have come through it the best and do claim the top 3 steps on the podium. Very well done to all 3 of them. If I had to say a driver of the day, well, I'll actually give myself another minute to think about that, so we'll just run through the classified. The full results, of course, pending any stewards' inquiries, which I reckon there'll probably be a few. But nevertheless, it's Ugi who takes the win. TB Sen takes 2nd, Felix in 3rd, Morgan with a wounded Ferrari in 4th, 3 gloves in 5th. The 2 Red Bulls, Tim Matz in 6th and the very entertaining PB Racing in 7th. Game Freaker 8th, Nick Mania, pole position, only 9th in the end thanks to a few incidents, but does get fastest lap. And TNR Jonas collects the final point in 10th. Vapor Zero was classified but actually did crash out, and the other 6 drivers all did not finish. Wow, just try to get my breath back after that ending to the race. Driver of the day is a really tough call today, I have to say. But you know what? I'm actually going to give it to the winner. I'm going to give it to Oogie. To win, to drive like he did in those conditions, I think deserves massive credit. And he didn't seem to be involved in any incidents or anything like that. He just got on with it. Got a bit of luck sometimes with the timing of safety cars, but he was there, take advantage of it. Didn't crash from what I saw, and ultimately at the end held his nerve against a charging Ferrari to take the win. So Oogie, not only is the race winner, he's also my driver of the day. But I think shout outs to all the top 3. TB Sen did a great job, as did Felix. And fair play to PB Racing. There may be some disagreements about some of his moves, but he made the race very entertaining in the latter stages, so no complaints from me about that. But yeah, that's about it from me here tonight. I really hope you've enjoyed this race. It was quite a test for our drivers. Next week we are at the Festival of Speed, if you like. We're at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza for the Italian Grand Prix here in F7. I hope you can join me for that. Same time at 8 o'clock. It's going to be an absolute belter, round 6 of a championship. Be sure to stay tuned in to the Premier Sim Gaming League's YouTube channel tomorrow evening. We've got leagues F1 through to F6 on the PS side, and I'll be back in the commentary box for F4 with Felix. So be sure not to miss any of the action tomorrow night. There's going to be a lot to enjoy. But from me, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great week. And until the next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.